Welcome to Merschman Seed's Cup of Joe. On this episode, we share information on Victrato Seed Treatment from Syngenta, now part of our Starting Line Plus soybean seed treatment along with Trunemco. Hear a local Southeast Iowa update on crop progress, field conditions, tillage, and more. Dylan shares an update on Peyton 2 and Maddie 3 wheat brands in the Southeast Iowa area.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seed's Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars, Lynn, Dylan, and Ben. And Ben's going to start off.
Yeah. This week we had some pictures shared with us from our Syngenta rep. And one of the products that is in our seed treatment, as many of our customers know, is the new Victrato Seed Treatment, which is the red crown rot, sudden death, soybean cyst nematode protectant that we used.
It's in our Starting Line Plus.
Yep.
So, prior to that we used Sultro.
Correct. And what was shared with us this week was basically comparisons between its main competitor, Syngenta's main competitor, against the sudden death and soybean cyst nematode acre. And what you're looking at when you're looking at these pictures is we have Tendovo, which is a Syngenta product. It is a pre-product that is a dual metribuzin and first-rate combination. And you have the Tendovo plus Victrato. So you got a pre with a Syngenta base with Victrato as an add-on. And then you have that same comparison with the Syngenta F&I with a Levo with this Tendovo product. And what you're seeing is a lot of the times what they called the halo effect. So there's a fair amount of phytotoxicity that comes with the Levo product. It's just that soybean seedling metabolizing and working through the active ingredient that's in Levo that makes it effective. And a lot of the times with Levo, it can actually slow the bean plant from progressing through its different stages. So you can usually see a day or two slower emergence, and then potentially under the wrong conditions you can see a reduced stand count in certain scenarios. So then the next two slides over, we have Zidua Pro, which is a common pre that is used with Levo, and then Zidua Pro with Victrato. And again, Zidua Pro, one of the things that they talk about with Tendovo on the Syngenta website is that it's a safer pre. You're not going to see a lot of the same PPO burn because there is no PPO in this mix. That has its positives and its negatives by having the PPO in the mix. So what they're trying to illustrate here is that you're getting the hypocotyl is getting burnt off, and you're getting stand loss and reduction in stand because of the combination of the PPO with the Levo. So,
and there's the third component, and that's the weather, right?
Yes. Yep, weather plays a huge role, and a lot of the times when we see PPO damage, more times than not, let's say the field was planted and you're chasing the planter with a sprayer. You're putting your pre down, you're putting a burn down on, and you get a heavy rain, at least an inch of rain as the beans are coming out of the ground. There's a very hot, what could be considered a hot zone where that chemical is activating as the beans are coming out of the ground. PPOs are fairly aggressive. It'll burn the arch of the soybean as it's pulling through the ground and essentially killing the soybean plant. So
yeah. The moral of the story is Levo is a really good product, but if you combine it with certain pre's, you get that doubling effect when you get the certain weather conditions for damage. And it's one of the main reasons we switched over to Sultro and now Victrato, because of the fact of the seed safety that you have. So you eliminate half of the problem, not totally eliminate the problem, because you could still have PPO injury or pre-emergent injury. So we try to do everything we can not to stress the seed and reduce your stand. And so it's just something we wanted to point out as, whichever side of the fence you're on, you probably lessen the risk a little bit with the Merschman seed treatments.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I said, it's environment timing with the right actives. It happens every year somewhere. We get the phone call on it. I think we've already had one replant this year based on the PPOs. I'm not sure which seed treatment was used on that one, but it happens every year. It's just, I really like getting our pre's put on a week before the planter. This year it hasn't been an issue getting that pre reined in before the planter goes, so you're not worried about moving trash and having a dirty zone right over the top of your planter pass. But it seems more times than not, the guys that get the pre's on out early, they get reined in, they have just as good of weed control as the guys that are chasing the planters. So that would be my rule of thumb, or my broad speaking recommendation is try to get those pre's on early, because pre's take heat and moisture to degrade. A lot of the times if we get those put on early, you don't see the degradation, because a lot of times we're cooler. So
yeah, just putting the farmer hat on for a second, the Tendovo definitely looks like an option for guys that as we get later into the season here and you're chasing, if you think your beans are about to emerge and want to take away that risk of the PPO, that seems like a very helpful product there. Or conditions aren't favorable and maybe you're not getting that seed slot completely closed and are worried about beans coming up very quick. Different multitudes there to have that, but definitely a good product to have at our disposal here as we progress with weed control, because that is one of the best things that we've talked about ad nauseum with soybeans is getting a good pre and making sure that you stop that water hemp or kochia or palm or whatever your August uglies that you're trying to go after. Getting it knocked out early is the best course of action, because going in and playing rescue typically isn't the best course of action.
100% agree.
We'll just pivot here a little bit. Right now, locally we've got some guys that are pretty hot and heavy. I think down to the south we're seeing stuff kind of wrap up a little bit. To the north, we got the haves and have-nots. So fielded a few questions on what does it mean if it's too wet? What am I looking for when it's too wet? So a lot of it, you kind of have to know your own farms. Me personally, I like to go to the wettest spot of the possible field that I can find, check out the conditions there, judge according to that. But I guess what I look for is to go down to where, obviously, first and foremost, we want moisture. If you're in an area that has it, you want moisture. Too much moisture, that was the other question looking at. If you go down to the 2.5 inch mark or whatever, pop some soil out, kind of roll it in a ball in your hands, and if you can, that's called the ribbon technique, but if you could take that mud ball and start peeling it like with my thumb, for those listeners, you basically just almost like snap. And if that comes out in a long ribbon, it doesn't fall apart or crumbly, you're probably too wet. The other one would be is to, because on some prairie style dirt, Dylan and I were just talking about, actually last night, if you look at it, it's black. You put it in your hand, kind of put it in a ball, it feels wet, and you're like, oh man, this is probably not good. Well, then it falls apart. So you could be a little bit, if you're just looking at the characteristics, looking out over the field, you could be kind of deceptive to your eye. The other one is to look at, especially on corn, I get really anal on this one, is making sure that your sidewalls are disappearing. So a lot of good videos out there. Precision has some good videos to evaluate that. But basically, if you kind of brush that top of that dirt back, and start taking, if you got a pick or a seed finder, depth finder, if you kind of start poking at that on that sidewall and you're kind of seeing it look like chunks, you're probably having some sidewall compaction there. It should be real crumbly. Weather conditions that are a little bit on the wetter side, if you're running smooth closing wheels, you're probably pinching that and creating that. If you've got serrated or spike closing wheels, they tend to do just a little bit better job when you're a little on the wet side. And then the question that I get is, well, I'm committed, what do I do now? It's kind of based on your risk tolerance there. We have seen corn do really well, and maybe some adverse conditions not quite right. And then the other risk, though, is that you run into tomahawk roots. We don't get that root set. They start to grow laterally instead of growing down. So risk we have there, we're looking at late season sustainability potential issues. We're looking at late season drought issues if we're just not getting a deep-rooted crop. When you think about, depending on how your fertility goes on, if you put on your fertility and you go out and deep rip, you're not getting access to all that fertility that's within that root zone. So we really want to try to make the roots go down. The other one related to this too is I've got a few questions related to tillage, and I mean it's the same boat. If you're going in and you're looking at your tillage pan and you're getting a lot of waviness because you're not breaking stuff up, the wet and dry is not crumbling, for lack of better terms, probably a little bit on the wet side. But we are getting to the point where guys are getting a little bit antsy. We have had historically here in Southeast Iowa, last 3 or 4 years, there's been like a 4-day window, and then that window is shut off, and it's been 19 to 27 days later. So I understand it. What happens in that 27 days later is that I've personally been in this boat. You wish you had the soil conditions that you had on May 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. You wait 17 days and you're actually worse than what you were, but now you're fighting the calendar. So it's definitely one of those, it's your risk that you have. We have a lot of good potential drying conditions. I said that 2 days ago, and we've gotten rain twice since then, but we're getting good GDUs. If you have to get something in, you have to make a business decision. I'm not all that concerned on beans, especially corn. I think you just have to watch your sidewalls and make sure you're not smearing too much. But it seems like with corn, we've been a little bit wetter. We have the ability through side dress, foliar applications to kind of feed that crop. We can kind of keep that corn going a little bit longer through some post and fungicide foliar feeding applications that I don't fear corn as much as soybeans related to that. Sometimes with soybeans, if we get too smeary and we get that lateral root growth, they really tend to feel the stresses of either mid-season drought stress, mid-season water stress, and then late season, we just don't have that pool underneath us to get that crop to fully fill out. So a lot of fun conversations that I hate to sound like a politician, but it depends. It really depends on your field and what your tolerance is.
Yep. Backing planter pressure off too. So just getting by with the bare minimum on downforce and making sure that your row cleaners aren't plowing what dry dirt is on top. We're at that point with some of the stuff that we've been working on. So
yeah, and guys have precision. It always amazes me when you look across. We have it on our corn planter, and just how much lift actually these, even in no-till situations, you'd think that they'd be running quite a bit of down pressure, but actually there's a lot of lift to it. So guys running airbags, yeah, exactly. If you can get out, scratch, and see what you can get by on, you might not have to run that 100 to 120, whatever your preset setting is.
Yep.
On ours, it's whenever you remember to turn the compressor off. So it's definitely important to take a look at that.
Yep. Dylan, you've been looking at some wheat this week again?
Yeah, so the wheat's moving along actually quicker than I was kind of thinking it would, even with the cool temperatures. Peyton, I would say, is for the most part fully headed out, unless it was a later October planted field. And even now the Maddie is pretty much fully headed in this kind of neck of the woods. So everything's starting to kind of get that nice look as the heads are waving in the wind. Disease pressure so far has been fairly none, but as we get moving forward now that heads are out and we get this moisture. That's going to be a kind of a breeding ground for that. So hopefully fungicide was applied on time to protect those heads from all the rain, because that's when all these rains we get, that's when it's going to affect like head scab. But then switch to beans you can almost start to row beans on the early second week of April, guys. Just be patient as those are starting to come up. If we're not getting those rains, our area, we're fine. Seems like we're getting that dang rain every 2 days, so that crust isn't really building. But as we're going through the field, just give it time, see where those beans are at. Maybe we'll catch a rain if we're starting to crust over to get those out. So they're trying. You can definitely tell they're trying to get out. Just a matter of time. We need some heat to get them to pop up, and it looks like this weekend we should get that.
I know stuff planted on Monday is already oblonged and imbibed. Like the stuff, if we catch some heat, is going to come flying out of the ground.
Yeah, and this weekend it looks like we're supposed to be 80s and into the 70s. So hopefully, and we're not supposed to get terribly cool at night, at least from where we were. So that should help get stuff moving along.
Perfect. How many days would you say the Peyton on similar planting dated Peyton versus the Maddie? Where are we at on heading schedule? Like, what do you think? 5 days, 8 days?
I was gonna say probably somewhere in the 7 to 8 range. It just seems, because we've got some seed wheat that was fairly close areas, and were planted within a few days, and the Peyton was definitely, I would say, a week ahead.
Said the Peyton out in my neck of the woods, if you kind of squint, you can start to see a little bit of a yellow hue coming across on the heads when you're looking at some, maybe the stuff that didn't quite get all the way down the ground.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell as you're driving and walking in fields, some of the wheat that wasn't planted maybe to the proper depth was on top of some residue. It's definitely slower, and you can definitely tell the waviness in it, and the head sizes are really just way different in size. And we can throw a picture up, just the head size that we need to make sure, I guess, that we're getting into the proper depth. And
I was talking with a grower down in the St. Louis area on some Peyton that they were looking at, and if we gain 5 days at heading and 3 or 4 days for dry down, because typically the hyper earlies, it's 2 components. It's a heading time frame, a jointing time frame, it's 3, jointing, heading, and dry down is the 3rd component on how these hyper earlies are getting off as fast as they are. So if we gain 7 days, then plus another 3 or 4, that's where our 10 days to 2 weeks comes from a harvestability standpoint, a harvest timing standpoint.
And I would definitely say we're definitely there. Everything just seems to be even quicker than last year, but we kind of knew that going kind of into kind of green up time frame. So,
which last year we were talking about, the GDU accumulations and whatnot, and how insane that was. And back to we get the question, is it Julian calendar or is it GDU? The answer is it's both. And this year we're probably proving some of the Julian calendar because of early planting date, and now we're going to reap a little bit of the GDU side with the dry down.
Yep. It's going to be fun.
High yielding. The stuff looks
like very good.
The combines are going to be really grunting across the fields because there's a lot of good looking wheat out there.
Good deal. Well, time for the corny jokes, and this week I went out and put a committee together to review them before and gave them the opportunity to vote on the best of the worst. So I can defer some of the blame on this committee if you don't like them. But anyhow, here we go. The wedding was so beautiful, even the cake was in tears. All right. The Middle Ages were called the Dark Ages because there were too many nights. Okay. This one here, I think the grandkids would really like. What is as big as an elephant but doesn't weigh anything? What is as big as an elephant but does not weigh anything? It's shadow. Okay. I don't know if you know this, but a person stole my glasses, and I promise you, I will find him because I have contacts. Okay? All right, Ben, this one's for you. You're a boater. What do you call a boat with a hole in the bottom? What do you call a boat with a hole in the bottom? A sink. Okay?
I had one of those before, believe it or not.
And the last one. What do you call a feud between celebrities? What do you call a feud between celebrities? Star Wars. Well, none of them are going to set you back too much, but hopefully it made you smile a little bit. I know it's really stressful right now trying to finish up planting, and with the weather that we've had and the cold conditions, as I wander around town doing things, everybody says, well, I like the sunshine, but I wish we'd get some warmer weather. So we're hoping for warmer weather. Anyhow, hope your family's safe and healthy, and we'll see you next week.